Very much. Well, good afternoon, everybody. We are going to call to order the meeting of the Committee of the Whole. It's Tuesday, September the 2nd, 2025 at 5 o'clock, and we are holding our meeting in Town Hall Council Chambers.
We'll begin this meeting of the Committee of the Whole by acknowledging that we are meeting on an Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. Long before today, as we gather here, there have been Aboriginal peoples who will be the stewards of this place. In particular, we acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Wendat, and Haudenosaunee peoples.
Which is the adoption of the agenda. It's moved by Councillor Aragona, seconded by Councillor Carty, that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole on September the 2nd, 2025 be adopted as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest. Seeing a wonderful delegation today. We all smile because sometimes we don't know the people, but we know Summer Cosgrave Robertson has been the executive director of RBCA for many years. Many of us can work on that committee. If you haven't had a chance, put your hand up because you're a leader. And so Summer will ask you to come forward to the podium, and we're interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be in Westport. Never have to twist my arm. So tonight I just wanted to come and take a few minutes to walk you through our 2024 annual report. We obviously prepare one every year, but it's nice to come out to council and just be present in the community, opportunity for you to ask questions, but also an opportunity for us to highlight not only the work we're doing in the watershed, but in particular in your village. So I've just got a brief slide deck, just 4 main slides. So the first one will cover our planning and regulations program. So sometimes this is what we're perhaps most known for, depending on people's kind of interaction and experience with the Conservation Authority. Certainly a big program area for us, high levels of plan review comments. In case you're not familiar, we are circulated planning applications for municipalities. We review them from the natural hazard perspective and provide comments back to municipal staff to make informed decisions and recommendations to council. So obviously, just given the geographic size of Westport, we don't have a ton of planning and regulations files in your community, but certainly always available to assist staff. We did have 4 planning files last year that we did comment on. And then we also have a permitting function. So if somebody wants to do an alteration to a water course, some shoreline development in a floodplain, or perhaps near a wetland, they would require Conservation Authority. One of the things, though, I will draw your attention to, because I'm not sure it's always the public's perception of the Conservation Authority, is that 97% of our permits last year went out within provincial timelines. So we have actually adopted a more aggressive timeline the province has assigned. We have a premium on customer service. We do not want to be an impediment to development. So staff work very hard in terms of managing files to make sure that decisions are made in a time. And 99% of completed applications that came in were issued a permit. So I think that's sometimes contrary to some people's perceptions, is that the Conservation Authority doesn't prove anything. And I would argue that the data very much shows the opposite. We are almost always able to work with an applicant to, sometimes we have to change a few things in the application, but we're usually able to negotiate something where they get approval for what they're looking to do, but we're able to do it in a manner that fits within our legislation. So we put a high priority on that. We also provide septic services to a number of municipalities, both on the approval side for new systems, but also reinspection, typically in Lake Country for waterfront properties. And we're happy to be able to provide those services to Westport and a number of your surrounding communities, which is great. We're well known for, you're very fortunate to have Foley in your backyard, but we do have a large number of land holdings. Most of our property's been donated over the years, and we have over 4,000 hectares of just natural land. So these are properties that we would hold just in a natural state to allow them to perform natural functions. But we do have 11 conservation areas, which I think is also sometimes what people know us for. Hopefully they've come out, enjoy the trails, the beaches, the boat launches. Foley is certainly one of two flagship conservation areas that we have, kind of our largest, most popular conservation areas. Often see Foley on like the top 10 places in Ontario to go around the fall, just given the outlook from Spy Rock. And one of the things that we started over the last few years is to really put a priority on accessibility. So oftentimes outdoor areas are not accessible to people that have any sort of mobility issues. And so we've been working with a consultant and other conservation authorities to really figure out how we make our sites more welcoming to people of all abilities. And so we've done some work at Baxter, and now we're focused on Spy Rock. So there's been some conversation, working on different designs, but really wanting to make kind of Spy Rock, which is often what Foley is best known for, really welcoming and accessible for everyone in the community. So that'll be a project that you see kind of come to fruition over the next year or two. And of course, outdoor education programs. Most of you probably know Rebecca, local legend, wonderful employee, I have to say, but her and Leah and the rest of the team up at Foley have really just been expanding and growing kind of the legacy of outdoor ed at Foley that's been around for decades. And so offering everything from summer camps to school programs through to forest school, which are, incredibly popular. So next slide looks at our stewardship programs. These are often programs that residents are able to tap into. So we do tree planting, certainly upper watershed. It's a lovely natural state, which is great, but we do some tree planting up at this end of the watershed, and certainly a lot in the middle and lower portion as you get into some more urbanized areas. Shoreline naturalization, also a popular program for waterfront residents, and clean water grants. So we offer generally to farmers, but also rural residents, just to help offset the costs of projects that will help improve water quality. But these programs are also available to municipalities. So we often think about them and market them for residents, but we try to partner with municipalities as much as possible. I know with Westport, we've been able to do a nice bioswale partnership along one of your roadsides. And we've also done some naturalization on the island down at the harbor. So projects like that we love. Anytime that you're thinking of doing something kind of environmental, conservation minded, don't ever hesitate to give us a call. Our staff want to lend out their technical expertise, but also if there's a way for us to partner on the financial side of it too, we will help kind of leverage whatever funding we have to make that. And then last slide is science and engineering. So also a large part of what we do. So watershed monitoring, incredibly important program across the watershed, but we have a lot of specialized monitoring that we do in the upper watershed. Our lake monitoring is robust, looking at water quality, looking at trends. We have a lot of partnerships with lake associations, lots of volunteers. They help provide staff with access. So it's a really good partnership that we have with residents and lake associations. I think the data is of value, not only to us and municipal staff, but it's really something that the public expects and wants to know. So it's a great education piece as well. And then of course, flood forecasting and warning is a big part of what we do typically in the spring, although now with changes in climate, we're kind of prepared for flooding at any time of year. It's certainly not falling into those normal patterns that we're used to. And also low water response is something we do as well. And then mapping, whether it's floodplain areas or areas prone to erosion, so that we can use that in our development program. And over the next couple of years, we're actually going to be doing a lot of hazard mapping in the upper end of the watershed. Historically, our mapping has focused where there was development pressure, which was middle to lower part of the watershed. As you well know, I'm sure, development pressure is in lake country now. So we are definitely stepping up our studies and our mapping and our understanding in this end of the watershed to make sure that we can provide information not only to our own staff, but municipal staff as well for informed decisioning. Stay nicely within my 10 minutes and wrap it up there, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I brought hard copies of the annual report. We've left a stack out the front, so if you've got residents that you may think are interested, please encourage them to pick up a copy as well.
Thank you so much. Amy, Councillor Cardy, Councillor Aragona, Councillor Cracken.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Just a question about water testing. Do you do it in conjunction with the lake associations, or do you do your own separate testing and then?
I know some lake associations have some community science programs that they do some testing on their own, but ours is all through our own staff and sent to labs and kind of quality controlled by us. And also look at their data, we're aware of their results, and sometimes they'll compare it with ours. So it's kind of a nice check. But I will say our monitoring program would not be possible without a lot of community members. Some of that will take staff out by boat or provide access to certainly. During COVID, they actually stepped up and did the monitoring themselves. We trained them. So we're very reliant on them as a volunteer base. But the science part of our monitoring is kind of done by our own staff with provincial protocols.
I'm always very surprised by the breadth and scope of the work. One of the things that really was an eye opener for me was a full focus on butternut tree planting. And so my question is that something that Westport should be aware of? Is this coming to the Westport area, or is this for the rest of the watershed?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's available to anyone. So we've got kind of a unique niche specialty, I would say, within the conservation authorities. We had a local expert who was passionate about butternut, and as the canker started, she was doing some work for us, not only on the research side, but also identifying healthy butternut trees, collecting seed, working with the chemical nursery to grow them. So we hand out healthy butternut seedlings to residents for free every spring that they can plant on their property. So that would certainly be open to Westport residents. And then we also have a program, we will sell butternut trees to developers who may have to compensate for any sort of destruction as a result of development. So that's a kind of a self-sustaining program as well. But certainly we have staff who would love to talk about, they could take up half an hour on butternuts. So if ever you wanted more information, they could come to council. But if there's a way for us to, better promote the program in Westport, we'd love to work with the municipality on that.
Back in February. Pay the whole in February, far enough in advance, gives us 2 or 3 months to get the word out. And we'll see if that helps at all. Sure. Yeah. Is that where you were going to go?
Yeah, I was going to do a follow-up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, follow-up question to you. Maybe if you could just talk about the importance of butternut to the watershed, so that just tie that knot together for it.
Yeah. So I think it just speaks to really the desire to maintain biodiversity. So, we're equally concerned about any sort of tree species that we may be losing through pests or invasive species. But butternut, it kind of came quickly and was wiped out entirely. And so their recovery seemed very tenuous at best. We are making some progress. I would say the seed that's been collected over the last almost decade from healthy butternut trees is producing what we're hoping is a more resistant strain of butternut. It's still pure and native. So we have the DNA tested to make sure that we aren't collecting from, say, a hybridized tree. But we're hoping by identifying some of those trees that seem to be resistant to the canker and then growing kind of healthy seedlings from them that we can. And that's why we actually hand them out for free, is we want people planting them throughout the watershed. So the more seedlings that we can get planted in the more different places, the better. And really just the reason why is just that biodiversity. So it's not that there's anything, extraordinarily special or important about butternut, wonderful tree. But, we would want to kind of step up and apply the same level of rigor to any tree that looked like we might lose the native population altogether.
I know some members of council have property on the shoreline, and they might be interested in 3 butternut trees to go along with their new renovation.
Yes.
Beyond the shoreline.
No. So
that's the other thing.
any property in the watershed, I mean, we're pretty generous. We handle it across the watershed lines too. It's just the key really is to get as many out there as possible. So people can contact our office, they can sign up, we'll put them on a list, and we keep track. So if you take butternut seedlings and you plant it, kind of keep that GPS location, say, so that we've got a map of where they've been planted, and we will do some survival assessments and touch base with you once in a while just to keep a record of how healthy it is and is it growing and has it died off. And it helps us really produce a database of healthy butternut.
Thanks again for the report's excellent I think the reputation of our CBA in our region is stellar. As a little community, I think we rely on outside experts for, giving us, wording of issues that are of big concern to us. And the things I would say that we hear most about are things like water quality of our lake, stormwater management, and recently, flooding. Can you share with us the process that we have for accessing the expertise for the village, for staff, that we can use in our own planning processes? So we've been talking about stormwater management, for example. How will we work with our CBA to ensure we're applying the best practices and thinking with the best advice possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. So all of our data, whether it's water quality or other monitoring data, we are trying to move always to friendlier user interfaces. So geoportals that are easier to access, dashboards that are more user friendly. So you'll see some of those enhancements and improvements over the next year and a bit. But certainly from a municipal staff perspective, we try to make sure the data is readily available. We also try to meet with municipal staff once a year, once every 2 years, just to share ideas on legislative changes, data needs, decision-making, making sure that we're coordinated. There isn't duplication between what municipal staff and CA staff do on development review, but it is very closely tied. So we want to make sure that what we're doing is kind of complementary, dovetailed into one another nicely. So we're always looking at kind of efficiencies in process. And so we've had a number of those meetings for the last few years, and data is often one of the things we discuss in terms of what do municipal staff need to know, what's the easiest way for them to access it. And we often try to kind of improve our systems to make it more tailored to what they're asking for. Climate change, obviously, big discussion right now. So we're hoping to have some discussions about what role we may be able to play on the data side that may help guide municipal decision making. You're starting to see some provincial documents come out where there's expectations that this climate change into effect or into account. So how do you do that, right? Like, what does that mean? So we're really looking at, is there a role that we could play to help give municipal staff the information they need to make changes? So we don't necessarily have all the answers. Sometimes we turn to municipal staff for the answers, but certainly want to be kind of hopefully the organization or the agency that fills some of those data gaps. And we certainly know Peter well, try to help him out as much as possible. I know in the past we've been able to sit on technical advisory committees. So from like a biology or an engineering perspective, if we have staff with a background or an expertise that you don't have on staff, they are kind of yours to borrow as much as we can facilitate that. So we also try to be a bit of a staffing resource, especially for smaller municipalities.
No, that's great. And that level of expertise is what, we rely on as counselors to get from our staff. And then my question was, how did the staff get it from you guys? It sounds like it's an iterative, ongoing and ramped up dialogue.
Yeah.
Brought on in part by, glaring issues, partially spawned by climate change. Our lake is, pivotal to us, and figuring out what the options are. It's like what we thought were options a couple of years ago, don't hold up in today's world in the same way they might have been. So it's great to know that relationship's there and that it's an ongoing endeavor together.
There's kind of one new, like not one magic kind of touch point between the CA and the municipality, which I think is a good thing. It's just always kind of that needs assessment and ideally many touch points depending on your needs, project needs. So we try to be nimble and available, and the whole concept, I think, with the Conservation Authority is that we are watershed wide. So you could not expect 18 municipalities to each have a biologist or each have an ecologist or have a stormwater expert or a natural hazard engineer. So by us having one of each of those, the 18 municipalities share it, share the cost, share the expertise and tap into it. So that is the whole concept is shared resources, right? So we want to make sure that municipalities are benefiting from that.
Correct, thanks.
And we like,
And I guess I'll sum up, following up Councillor Crapper's. You and your staff have just been so terrific to Westport over the years. And sometimes with, not no disrespect to my staff, I don't mean it that way, but that extra edge of credibility because of their science background, really helps when it comes here. It really helps, and you've always been so generous, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say how sad I was to hear that Brian had retired.
yes.
I know he was, it was a big part to us. I'm looking at Peter here, the first EA, second EA. He's one of those guys that didn't talk a lot, but when he did, everybody listened because he was such a solid background. So when you see him, from the village of Westport and council, we really appreciate the time and effort that he put in guiding the EA, particularly through the technical support.
Excellent. I worked under Brian for many years,
Yeah.
so I was well trained by him.
Yeah.
And yes, both Brian and Terry retired
Yeah.
last year. So
No.
big kind of daunting shoes to fill.
Mhm.
But we have Isabel now for their new director of science engineering. And
Great.
she's incredible. She's got private sector background. She's a PN. Her expertise is in slope stability. So I know she's met Peter. And so yes, we're lots of big players,
Yeah.
long-term players lost, but always kind of new talent coming, which is nice. And she's got a real focus on kind of municipal service, which is good. So hopefully down the road, if you've got similar projects coming up or other needs, she'll be able to step in and kind of fill that
Yeah.
spot.
Thank you so much. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks.
Staff will work out with you. I would like the opportunity for the people in the village to hear more about the tree planting. So I said February, just on the point of getting it far enough ahead of planting season. Invite that person back, probably not for 30 minutes,
No,
but
I'll caution. Joe knows from the tour, all the staff love what they do, so you
Yeah.
always have to assign.
so much.
Thank you
Okay,
very
safe roads, watch the deer when you leave.
Take care.
It's the community grant. And the motion is moved by Council Party, seconded by Council Aaron. The committee of the whole received a report entitled Administration Community Grants Program Intake number 2. And that the committee of the whole recommends the council approve the community grants for intake 2 as recommended at the September committee of the whole meeting. So this is one of these great opportunities. We had by happenstance provided opportunities to community groups and members. It wasn't formalized, so formalizing it now and getting it approved, and now we're in the second tranche. It's very exciting to me because that briefing note of the impact that even a small amount of money will have in a community our size. So those are just my comments in general on the grants. Any comments or questions, Councilor Card?
Yes, maybe explain the numbers a little bit more. If you add up the numbers in the status when you go over for the grants approved, there's a discrepancy there. So
So Patreon.
I'm on page 51, and I would wonder too if the $1,000 for mentioned up front there, for the new hockey club is included in the 7,500.
Okay, so in the if you add up the status,
Yeah.
Those were the requests.
Yes.
And then the decisions were what you have in the package. So what they asked for, they didn't necessarily get.
Looks like it's everybody around me.
So, to join.
12, 9, 3, in the ask and
I can definitely
Yeah, okay.
weigh into that. Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. So what was in the status is what we received for the requests. The Lumberjack senior hockey team requested $7,500, but after our analysis and going, taking each application and comparing it to the criteria, we recommended only 1,000 of that be granted to that specific team, to that specific request. So while it doesn't necessarily add up, it's because it didn't 100% meet the criteria. And so in an interest, it's in the briefing note, in still supporting the team, the reviewers recommended $1,000 for ice time.
So if the amount asked was 7,500, but the amount awarded was 1,000, does the math now work for you?
no.
Okay. So
Maybe I made a mistake.
68, so 78, it should be 100. Is that what you're getting? Should you? 1,000 for that.
Yeah, it'd make the numbers on the last page work, but
So the
I'm
total
just-
amount, I'm just doing a quick math. It looks like
70.
70. Or 68, 7,800. Yeah, that's the right number. Amy's a teacher, I'm going with her.
that's good.
Okay, 7,800 was the amount of this round. Anything else, Councilor Kern?
No.
Okay, Councilor Crawford.
I'm aware that we're doing work at the arena, and I think in the first round, we approved a full year of for one of the organizations to use that space. So given
What
that,
space?
their meeting room about the arena.
Okay, go ahead, yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor, one of the requests in the first intake was from Westport Senior Living Group, but they obviously haven't been able to utilize the space for as long as they requested. And so they haven't used that amount of money.
I guess my question would be, do we then adjust the budget? Because that's a case where, unlike where we're approving the gravel for the volleyball, it's not a tangible thing, so we haven't actually, they haven't been able to use the space because
So that would be something that you carry over at the end of the year. We don't know if they're gonna use up between now and December.
So that was one of the issues I raised when we first started talking about this, and some of the things, none of them in this round, by the way, are for in-kind, use of space type of things where it's different than when we're providing ice time. That costs a certain amount and for which they are using that ice time. So it strikes me as an interesting example of budgeting that in this case where we budgeted out of the 30,000, I don't know the amount, some for that, and it's not being used, does that money come back into the budget somehow, or how do we account for that?
Yeah, so thank you through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so that budget, we can review it at 2026 budget deliberations. If it's too high, it's too high. You can see we allotted 30,000, didn't use that much in the recommended applications. But we do assign a number to the Westport Senior Living Group because there's a fee for that space. And so we can render an actual dollar figure that we're waiving for them.
And we did say,
So as long as you're clear on that, let me finish.
Yeah.
It's a rental. And we're waiving the fee of the rental. Despite how entitled we think the group might be, that's what this is about, is the rental fee is what is in their grant. That we're waiving.
so to follow up though, at this moment in time, unless I'm wrong, and maybe that space is available to rent. Yeah,
Correct.
we budgeted into our math for accounting purposes and the
There'll be a
rent
surplus.
plus. Pardon?
It'd be a surplus, yeah,
So that should show up in that.
Yeah.
That's what that's.
definitely. So let's just say, because we probably have still a reserve of, I'm just gonna say $5,000 without
Yeah.
doing the math. And if we end up with $2,000 from that group, that would be 7 at the end of 25 that I would expect to carry into that budget line for 26. So instead of having a fund for 30 and 26, it would be 23. Is that's the way we would do.
And we did say we would review this whole process at the end of the first year when we talked about it last time. So that'll be helpful and part of what.
I don't remember that because I would be surprised I'd agree to that because we wouldn't have a year of real experience.
After our year of real
Yeah,
experience.
like let's give it our honest try. We've had the canteen torn up and.
Sure, but we did agree that we
I'm
would review the process.
I'll do whatever.
Great.
I just didn't nod my head yes, because I don't remember agreeing to a year, but
We did. Thank you.
Anybody else in relation to grants? Okay. Then, I just don't think I read the question. Let's move to Councilor Cardy. Second. I did, I read the question. Anybody need it read again? It was all those intake twos that I tripped over. I don't want to read it again. I'll call the question. All in favor? Yes. Point two is the comprehensive zoning bylaw update RFP results. And the motion is moved by Councilor Aragona, seconded by Councilor Cardy, that the committee of the whole received the report entitled Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw Update RFP Results, and that the committee of the whole recommends that council award the comprehensive zoning bylaw update project to Novatech engineers, planners, and landscape architects. Any discussion on this? Councilor Cardy.
Yeah, I just want to comment. I think that they've been a fast supplier of services for a while, but I like the idea that the budget was split between 2 years because just carrying the chunk of it over anyway. And looking forward, it's good for me.
Sure. Anybody else? Councilor Crawford and then Councilor.
I think it might be useful just for the public. I didn't know what a comprehensive, so the relevance of it, it's an important process that most people viewing wouldn't have any idea what it is we're spending, approving the dollars to be spent for, would it?
So the people who have been watching our zoning bylaw reviews in watercolor would get a better understanding. So let me start there. The number of times that we've been asked to change the zoning because the zone stipulated that there had to be so much frontage. And the developer was saying he wants less frontage. But the zoning bylaw is a master plan for, depending on what zone you're in, what you can do with your property. We did a lot of dancing around the OP. And the OP, if the OP, let's say, is at 1,000 feet for planning, the comprehensive zoning bylaw is on the deck. It's in the weeds, and that what needs to be adhered to for any development. So we had to get the OP straightened out first of all, so that we had sort of that general feeling. And this will be very interesting because I'm sure some people who had opinions on the OP started to understand that that's not where the meat and potatoes is. The zoning bylaw is where the meat and potatoes is. I'm super happy that we're getting this out the gate. When you look at how old and stale dated ours is, it needs some improvement. And I suspect there'll be lots of involvement from the public on this. There'll be lots of questions. There'll be lots of people thinking, oh, geez, I wanted to do this something to my property at some point. If they change the zoning bylaw, will that impact me? I want input. I think it's going to be an exciting process to get people's input. And so it's nice that the numbers landed the way they did, because the guiding principle for this will be the OP, and we know Novatech did the OP. So they're already well down the road understanding the OP of Westport, as well as the amount of time that they spent here as our planner, understanding that some of the nuances that we have.
So just a quick follow-up, I think when people realized that the OP was so overdue, they thought, yes, we must spend money on bringing it up to speed the same as for this. I think the term master plan is useful for people. How long ago was the last master plan?
How old's our master?
Through you, Madam Mayor, 2000.
I was going to say 8.
2008.
Yeah, I was going to say 8, but I was grasping. So.
So that's helpful.
How
I
many
think
years?
people appreciate just having that information about why we're investing in this.
17 years. Times have changed for sure. Thanks for those questions, Marty. I think it's going to be really exciting work to do for sure. Okay, Councilor Gomer.
Just a clarification on process. So the budget for this year is 25K. What is the full projected cost when we're done, and what is the schedule? When can we expect to see a first draft of the zoning bylaw?
Yep. So thank you through you, Madam Mayor. I'm actually going to bring that back to the council meeting, subject to committee recommending approval from Novatech. I'll bring the timeline back so council can see what the benchmarks are. The total project is under the budget. I believe it was 50,000, 25 for this year, 25 for 26. It came out at 47 for the total project.
is there a timeline within which we have to work? I thought there was a timeline between the draft of the official plan and the amount of time that we had to actually update the zoning bylaw around that.
Go ahead.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. I have to double check on that one. I think you just have to commit to updating the zoning bylaw so that it's reflective of the official plan. But I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to check and get back to you on the regulation.
If people update their LPs all the time, so I think it's a principle. But let's find out. Good discussion. All question, all in favor, carry. Okay, 6.3 is a circular material calendar support, which is good, because we'll announce tonight what's being picked up tomorrow, so people know. And no fault to Mr. Evans at all. I know he's been doing his best to get answers. So, moved by Councillor Carney, seconded by Councillor Aragona, that the committee of the whole receive a report entitled Public Works Circular Materials Recycling Calendar Support, and that the committee of the whole recommend that council direct staff to enter into an agreement with Circular Materials Ontario Religious Waste and Recycling Calendar. Tomorrow is not plastic.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is plastic. Any question of this? Could be, anybody watching would be hanging on the edge of their seat, wanting us to say what tomorrow was. So it's plastic. Comments on this? Go ahead.
So one question, and when I was reading through the briefing, one thing stuck out. Is this agreement that we're trying to get into for just for 2025 calendar year, or is it the 26, or is this an ongoing agreement that they're going to be contributing to the cost of the production of the calendar on an ongoing basis?
Great question. Mr. Evans looking at you?
He is.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Evans. This has just been for the public. This has been what's supposed to be an easy, seamless process. Has not, because the cost has gone up so much that the groups are kind of pushing back to the government. The government's not quite sure what they're going to decisions are taken for the future. So that has put ours kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit while they make up their mind. So Peter, you've done a great job pulling it together. Go ahead and answer the question.
Yeah, so we're not 100% sure, of course. We know that they're still working on their 2026. So we're here at the end of 2025 and they're working on that. Should there be funding for our program going forward, then that agreement would cover it. But it's not determined yet what's going to go forward for 2026. So the municipalities are all being encouraged to refer any questions to the Circular Materials Westport Facebook website for as much information as possible. There'll be calendars there and the information. So
Yeah, so that's a good point, because we know the proposed changes would not in themselves have impacted us, but we're waiting to see what falls out. So for council to understand, the proper noun of the company is Circular Materials. If anybody's looking on the website to follow up what Peter just said, it's not describing circular garbage cans, it's the proper name of the company, Circular Materials, if you're interested in finding that out. Thanks for that. And are we going to update the calendar and get it out then, team?
it's
underway.
been out for a few weeks now.
Oh, good.
It's
Okay.
up on Circular Materials website, and it's been available now. All.
Okay, so did it go in the mailboxes?
We didn't stuff mailboxes.
Okay, so we should, now that we're sure, we should stuff mailboxes so that we don't have everybody coming in here. It's what we normally do. It's not a big cost, and that would be really appreciated.
Yep.
And we'll find something else to put on the other side of the paper. Other announcement that we can think of this time. Okay, everybody okay with Circular Materials? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Frustrating, Peter, but you're doing a really good job. The next is one that I think they'll be shouting from other people throughout the building, but I'm going to give you the opportunity. This is the library entrance update, and it's moved by Councillor Aragona, seconded by Councillor Carney, that the committee of the whole receive the report entitled Public Works Library Entrance Update, and that the committee of the whole recommend council proceed with this project using existing suppliers and pricing. It needs to be under the direction of the CAO. That was for August when we were off. I want to add that burden. So I'd like to just remove that note, and absolutely no disrespect, we added it in August because we weren't gonna be here. So if Sophie would move it in secondary, we're just with the existing suppliers and pricing.
Yes, that's
So we can amend that. Any amendment, okay. Your criticisms, just let's not add extra work to Daniel at this point. Go,
Well,
Counselor
well,
Crawford.
I have had a bit of feedback, all positive, but I haven't spoken to Pam, I was out of town, but in general, what there was worry about was whether or not the engineers would support preservation of what we call the children's room, and that entranceway had to be creatively and still handled by Peter and Kim, thank you very much. So that we don't have to make as big a change inside. It's still gonna be pretty disruptive. Timelines? What do you think is gonna happen? in
So
terms
this has
of-
got to be approved at council, but go ahead, Peter.
So through your trip, so we're still looking at fall. We're working at using the contractors we're in. So
Good.
the fall is what we have.
Yeah.
Right now.
Awesome.
Do we have quotes for the cost?
Some, your worship.
Okay, is there any chance it's gonna be heated, or is that just
Still
exorbitant?
to be determined, we're between, still to be determined.
Okay,
So we're just waiting on the electrical review to come back.
Oh, I hope
obviously
so.
We have supply there, but.
yeah, I really hope so.
It's,
For the snow, but for the freezing rain. Yeah, that'd be
it's
great.
pretty tricky to tell from those drawings, so I'm looking forward. They're coming, a site visit this week, I think.
A staff site visit.
Yeah.
We're working on that right now and
Yeah.
I don't think we have a date and
Yeah.
time nailed down, but.
But in general terms, yes, this went the way that people are hoping it would go, and I think the accessibility improvements are something to celebrate now.
We're women of
Thanks
our-
to you guys.
We are women of our word.
You most certainly are, and men. Let's not put it all on the women.
Well, it was a nose to nose commitment, as I recall. All right, well, that's absolutely great news. We're thrilled. And of course, we'll be really pushing to try and get it done before the bad weather gets here, so that's great. Call the question. Nobody else had anything, I don't think. All in favor? All right, so 6.5 is the winter dock storage policy for Westport Harbor. And so this is coming back again after some additional research was done. The motion is moved by Councillor Cardes, seconded by Councillor Aragona. The committee of the whole receives the report recreation winter dock storage policy for Westport Harbor. And that the committee of the whole recommends that council prohibit dock storage within the village water lot at the harbor and implement a monetary penalty for the removal of docks that continue to be stored there. Councillor Cardes.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just have a question. I know that our insurance wouldn't cover, but if the people who own the docks, could they have a rider or their insurance cover any of the damages? If there were ever damages to be incurred?
Well, I think there's other issues as well. So whether they could get insurance, it's on municipal property. Right? It's on municipal property, and our concern is twofold for insurance. It's damage that it would do to our docks, and Councillor really clear on more of the third party risk of skidoos coming through there in the winter and not knowing that there were things there. So that's one thing. Whether they could get insurance or not, I think the concern that I have is that water lot is so narrow. I'd asked for somebody to go to the GPS to figure out what it is, and the widest it is, narrower, the widest it is only 9 meters. And so there's very challenging to anchor a dock in the 9 meters that's ours and not have it bump into our dock. That's one thing, very, very narrow. And our insurance won't cover us. Councillor Crowley.
Couple of things. We were curious when we first discussed this about whether there was potential in this to be a money or generator by renting out space. And I'm through you to CEO. Have we analyzed that and what it would at best have looked like for us as a village to charge a fee for the maximum number of docks that could even be there, which I have no idea what that is, or maybe the number that have been there. Like, would it have made a difference to our bottom line?
So just for the question itself, I don't think staff did that because the liability is so high. So it's a little bit like spitting and chewing. If we are concerned about how narrow our portion is, and we're concerned that any docks in there bumping up against the side would damage our dock, then if the recommendation from staff came, let's make it a fee for service. I wouldn't support it because either we're principled or we're not. And the principle being that narrow water lot, damage to our dock, and then our insurance that we're not insured for it. I just,
Sure.
so if they have, I'd be interested to hear it for sure. But I would argue against it just for what I said. So I'll turn it back to your question to the CAO.
Yeah, thank you through you, Madam Mayor. Had this report been recommended by committee in a different way to explore policy development, things like that, we probably would have jumped into that deeper. But because we talked about cost recovery, and then the risk associated with this, not to mention the very small amount of people that benefit from this relative to the actual population of the village that use it, we didn't focus so much on that because our recommendation is to prohibit it.
I'll follow up, and I have a second question. I think what our guessing at the time was that unless we were charging $1,500 a dock for the winter, it wouldn't have been a cost recovery. And I wanted to know whether or not that was true because I get asked about that. It sounds like it would not have, I mean, the math to me, I mean, I was expecting the number to be quite low in terms of the money it would generate these versus the costs to us for other things. For, I mean, thought maybe insurance, but staff time, et cetera. That's fine. A thought put on the table because we're in September. And I will preface this by saying I've talked to a lot of people about this. I have not talked to anyone who does not have a dock out there that thinks it's something we should be pursuing. So the general public are going, everybody else on the lake has to deal with the dock.
Agreed.
But should we not consider for this winter something less? Is there time? Is it reasonable to expect people to make the changes to what they've done historically in September? And should we look at a phasing in of this versus an all in right now? Is where I want to put that on the table for consideration.
I've got lots of questions on that, but I'll let somebody else get in. Councillor Ardona.
I agree with the recommendation in the report. You know, we're not in the dock storage business. Initially, I had considered that it might be a way for us to try to make some revenue from storing the docks. But the more that we dug into it, the more that we information that we received, it became obvious that there really is no way to make money at it. So, and there really is no level of insurance that we could get that would guarantee that we can recover the cost of repairing any damage that occurs to our facility. So in my mind, we're either going to do this or we're not going to do it. So my recommendation would be, my inclination is to say no internal thing. Let's just proceed as recommended by staff.
You're in or you're out, and as some of us have noticed over the past few weeks, people camping in our parking lot. We don't allow that. I mean, this is no different in my mind. Even if you find a permit for $20, we both noticed, the mayor and myself, that there was a camper on the weekend to help himself to hike. So, I mean, we've discussed this thing to no end, and I guess the bottom line is we just have to either step across the line or stay where we are. And I say we step across the line. I mean, Parks Canada doesn't allow it. I don't see how we should be any different. If there was 100 docks and there was $10,000 in revenue, and you could block the area off, and you could afford the staff to monitor and license or whatever other methodology you came up with, that'd be a different story. But there are a few people, as Councillor Crafter said, there are, I believe, about 1,600 cottages that we're looking at there, and dock in the harbor, and I would suggest that they get together with a neighbor or sheltered bay that somebody they know do their docks there, if they won't stand up to the mayor. I just don't see it being feasible for the village.
So the bit of the sting that bothered me was the accusation, the comment, the description that we didn't consult. So let's take this back to the beginning. Because Moore's not with us today, but on one side, I'll get to that in a moment. On one side, we've got 7 or 8 Westport residents who have written us emails. They probably are probably watching now thinking, but we pay taxes, why can't we do it? I get that. And I get that it's frustrating. I get that it's September and they've only got 2 or 3 months to make up their all go. So we're not tone deaf to them saying what's changed. So let's kind of go through the chronology of what's changed. We have had issues with docks in there that have come loose. None of those, we didn't know who any of those people were, not the council, but staff didn't know who any owners of those docks were until the emails started coming in when we started having these discussions. That's not my criticism. That just shows how kind of wide open if you got your dock in time, you got a spot and nothing happened. But that took an awful lot of time last year when we had docks go free staff were trying to find out because we were responsible then because it had been tucked in our harbor. So we didn't know who they were. So for when the challenge about we didn't consult, we didn't know who to consult with. So that's a given. The number of conversations that we've had about this, that people have watched, I'm with Councillor Crapper. I get, unless you're the 8 people, and again, we're not tone deaf to their concerns, but if you're not one of those people, everybody else is saying, like, what's the big deal? Other people have to find a place for their dock. So that's part of our challenge in finding the balance. So that brings us to the questions that we've had in staff's preparation of the report. The water lot is important to me. What do we lease in that water lot? And the maximum width that we own is 9 meters. So not quite sure, jockeying for position, how you get a dock in, and they secure one end, right? Because the other end sways. So what sort of swaying do we have that's either not going to go into the federal side or our own infrastructure? And that's a challenge. We've never had to face that before. I'm sure that the people who have provided the service of bringing the 8 or 8 docks in, had a plan. That, you put them in certain places and you allow, they should all, ideally in physics, they should all swing the same amount depending on the current. But we've now lost half of that because Parks Canada says we can't put it in their park. And we have no insurance for it. So thankfully, there's not been an issue over the years where there was somebody who was injured for, somebody celebrating any sort of an event down at the harbor, thinking that they'd go dock to dock. Maybe they did, but we didn't hear about that, and there was no injury or risk to us. So, and as far as for all those reasons that it came forward, I just couldn't support making money. I'm not risk adverse. I just don't see any path forward here to favor. And somebody has said, well, you could charge us. It's not about the charging. It's just not possible with the 9 meters wide in the water lot that we lease to put the docks that they're not going to bump into something else. We have no insurance. So that's just sort of the way I see it. I want to go back to where I began. We didn't know who these people were. So it was difficult to consult with people. We've all read their emails. There's a similar thread, similar concerns raised in the email. Many of them raise the issue that the person who's towed their dock is going to be out money, and that's unfortunate. Maybe they can find another place. I think Councilor Carter said maybe they can find another place and the person can still tow it. But I don't normally add so much to a debate. But on this, for me, it's a principle. We don't have the width. We don't have the insurance. I feel I empathize with the people who have had free access to that for years. I hope they understand what we're saying that in 2025, with the way the situation is, with the changes, or with now knowing what the feds are going to permit, knowing the risk interest rates are the insurance is a real concern. That's where I'm going to land when we vote. Is a no, and hope that they heard the whole thing. And I'm sure we'll get more emails, but there's all the other people who say just do your job and say no. Did I open up a can of worms there at all? All right, then
No, it was, thank you for the clarification, because the 9-meter piece is new. It's part of what the staff were asked to do is the research pros and cons.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, had that, all of that information at one time to help make sense of why this decision was being done.
Okay, thanks. So you're satisfied with Councillor Crawford? Everybody else? I'll call the question. All in favor? Here. 7.1, which is a notice of motion from Councillor Aragona. I'll read it, I'll make a comment, and then I'll ask Councillor Aragona to continue on. So it's moved by Councillor Aragona, seconded by Councillor Cardy. Whereas the Council of the Village of Westport has approved through budget processes the continuous funding for improvements of facilities. And whereas the Village of Westport, in conjunction with the Lockwood Foundation, have invested over $200,000 in the improvement of the Lockwood Park facilities. And whereas vandalism of village facilities has been reportedly increasing, specific damage to the new Lockwood Park washroom facility. Now, therefore, the Committee of the Whole recommend the Council direct staff to research and report back on the policy requirements, cost, and enforcement capabilities to implement a comprehensive video facilities most affected by vandalism. So, Council, the nuance of this motion is we need to direct staff to do a report. So we need to do that in open. Security of municipality facilities is something that we deal with in camera. So I know Councillor Aragona has prepared something to begin. If you have questions, please understand that some of them I may say that has to wait for the report to come back at council and we can get more details on security of buildings. Is that fair? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, the motion is pretty, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, just like to put a few more details on that if I can. There's been incidents of graffiti on the arena exit door, the theft of plants at the Serenity Garden, damages to the newly installed dugout cover, support brackets, which didn't last long. Apparently, within a night they were damaged, and 4 separate incidents of damage at the Lockwood washroom facilities as a result of after-hours break-ins. So these are hard costs that the village is incurring for materials and resources to actually do the repairs. And I think a video surveillance system would allow staff to monitor the activity at the park and in those areas 24 hours a day and provide the record that would be needed if an incident does happen and we have to conduct an investigation. It'd be a lot easier to find out exactly what did happen and who the perpetrator was.
Let's call the question then. Oh, did you have a question?
No, I prefer, I like this motion. I will say compared to like doing it, all my questions were, how do you do it? And I've talked to other municipalities that struggle with the questions that our report's going to help us understand. So it's not that we are doing it, about doing it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it would be beneficial to look at the information center too, or if it should be just one location, because I know there has been problems at the information center as well.
Councillor, or CAO, you saying on that?
Sure, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I know your motion speaks to Lockwood Park specifically. Yep. But if that's council's directive, certainly we can explore what facility-wide, village-wide facility coverage would look like.
Yeah, I think I hadn't thought about the information center, but I think if we're going to look at policy and find out what information needs to be had in order to create a policy that's comprehensive, then maybe we can look at it as for all public facilities in the village and see where that takes us, include the Lockwood Park and the information center.
So the bottom last sentence. So thanks for that, Councillor Cardy. The motion is blah blah blah. Sorry. It says, Committee of the Whole recommend the council direct staff to research and report back on the policy requirements, cost and enforcement capabilities to implement a comprehensive video surveillance security system for those facilities most affected by man.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, just to reiterate, Councilor Aragon was quite correct in his assumption. I walk that every morning and, Chismore put up the awnings and the next morning.
Yeah.
There was damage and before that they had the rods up and I would say half of them were destroyed. The washrooms, you can tell that people are just taking it around the door and trying to smash it open because every time you touch it, there's a little more give, a little more give, a little more give. And I know that, it's been probably at least 2 times that they've had to bring in a locksmith, try to repair it. That gets, you got travel. All the expenses go along with $100 an hour locksmith. So, it begs to say that if we can't control it any other way, which it doesn't seem we can, that would be the way to do it.
So in a village like ours, it's somewhat remote. The people who kind of live here, stay here unless they've got a car to go somewhere else. My 35 years of policing tends to make me think that it's somebody in the area. You don't have to then talk for that many years to figure that out. So let's keep our eyes open out there, everybody. And if you see somebody causing some sort of damage, I'm not asking you to get involved. Don't call me. Oh, well, you can call me. Don't call me. Call the police. Report because they're likely somebody's children. And but it's not like we're in a city where it's wide open and people can travel. So if you have any questions, you can question those sorts of things. I think that's where Councillor Card was going. If that's the only thing we can do to spend money to video it, okay, but maybe we can prevent it instead.
I've noticed that the light at the basketball court is on. I'm just wondering whether it's on quite late at night. So I can see it being open to a certain point in time, but that point in time where the kids should be home shouldn't be on. So I'm just wondering whether it's on a timer and we can adjust it or what happens there. I wouldn't dare suggest what that time is, but I know that it's been on at 11:30 at night lots of times. So.
Okay.
I don't think it's on a timer, I think it's on. But.
Is it solar?
No.
Okay, can we look at this then?
Yeah.
Because winter's coming as well. Okay, thanks for that, Council. Okay, so we know what the motion is. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. 8.1 is the United County Cities Granville Growth Management Study. It's provided for information. Seconded by Councilor Cracker, the committee of the whole received and file information 8.1. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? David, somebody have a new announcements? Mr. Evans, you're going to update us on the sidewalk on Spring Street.
Yeah, so I just want to update council that all of the stormwater infrastructure has been installed and built, and we are just doing scheduling of the concrete contractor to install the curb sidewalk. We've got to cut down a couple of the structures for the tops of the things are going along well for timing, well for budget as well.
And so I asked you earlier today, because I have some questions about Westport. And we agreed that if the contractor could not complete the sidewalk in time for the 20th, we can live with the gravel and get it done afterwards. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, good. So nobody be twisting ankles on worms. Hopefully we can get the sidewalks in, but the community has been planning that day for a while. And so I'd hate to have tripping. Any questions for Mr. Evans in regards to the sidewalks on Spring Street? All right. Questions from the public or from the media?
I think Peter has one more announcement if you have time.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing. We talked very, very quickly about circular materials. So starting tomorrow, circular materials contractor that's gonna be collecting and recycling the village is Terra. So you're gonna see a few different trucks in the village tomorrow.
Okay.
And Terra for recycling as well. Our waste contractor has switched to E360 solution. So waste recycling is gonna look completely different tomorrow compared to last week. Two separate. Similar to when there was a breakdown of a split truck and with our previous contractor. The waste and recycling are gonna be picked up at two different times, but contractors, so how they can drive together, we'll see as all questions for waste for recycling are to go to Terra, and there's a website for that.
And on our homepage on the website, so if people need it, they can find it fairly quickly.
Yep.
So the rules, the procedure for recycling, particularly plastics. Do we need to provide some caution to our residents? Because our contractor up to this point has been very lax. And we love that. We love that, you know, I've lived in places where you have to scrub your plastic before you put it out or it's not accepted. And that's not been the case here. They've been very flexible. Is circular going to be as flexible?
So Terra, there's been a wide range of experiences with this program across the province. Earlier in the year, I spoke with a number of residents from other municipalities who had already transitioned and had noticed a difference.
Oh, good. Okay.
I think the bigger issue, and I've spoken to the three main commercial enterprises here that put out a lot of recycling for Pierce off and given them all warning that after the tomorrow's date, village is not looking after that at all. And that's where I think your worship alluded to at the beginning, that the province and Circular Materials as an organization are still going back and forth. We had a meeting last week and talked about the 11th hour where we're trying to get clarification on how that's going to be handled. So we warn them, each one, that we make sure you have an arrangement for some of this, especially the cardboard. So we'll have a week of the containers going first as a bit of a test, a bit of a trial. But in short, I don't expect much notice. The residents shouldn't notice a difference at all. There's no reason to think that they're going to be hyper strict any more than they were. I've been also putting my recycling out for this company and have not made any changes to the way I put materials out. So I've got a few months under Terra. The biggest change is commercial, and then we don't know what's really coming after 2026. So we know the materials that they are required to collect, and I think all municipalities in the province are still waiting for updates and program changes and the tweaks. I know the Circular Materials organization as well are working to try to get some last minute changes through so that they can get less information request. They can provide their information out to the public across the province, not just here in Westport.
Yeah, and people listening are probably going, "Oh my God, that's so boring. Why are they talking about it?" But it has such a huge impact. I mean, our contractor picked up all the cardboard, and you know we would see it, pick those people out walking in the morning, and they were very gracious about it. But I'm glad you flagged that. So if businesses contact you about not happy that their large amount of cardboard is not being picked up, brief that the world is likely changing, they need to have another option. And if that doesn't satisfy them, then they can go to the system site for further something that we can fix. It's out of our hands now that it's a government run program. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, just as Peter was explaining there, I haven't seen the calendar, but if it isn't on the calendar, that last point you made about any questions about what the recycling program is and what is being recycled and how to contact, use the website, maybe that should be on the calendar if it's not already on.
So about 3/4 of the page.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that. Are you done, Peter?
Yes,
Yeah, you're good. All right. Questions from the media, questions from the public?
None.
None. Very good. So we're going to go into closed session for a couple of issues. Moved by Councillor Crapper, seconded by Councillor Card, that the committee of the whole proceed in closed session as Then under the municipal act to consider advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And personal matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, and a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to negotiations. All in favor? Sun is gorgeous, CAO, but it's, when I look at you, I can't see anything but
Ready yet. I just need to change the name.
So, welcome. We call the meeting back to order. And I can share this, Councillor Crapper will move, Councillor Carter will second. The committee met in closed session to consider advice on the subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary. Personal matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, and a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to negotiations. And the committee took no action before receiving the information, but I would like to share that we, part of what we met is our discussions and negotiations with other agencies and other to become a single tier, or the possibility of becoming a single tier government. And we recognize that those are just words. They're just sometimes words on a page that people, the average person in the community, wouldn't understand. And we also recognize that it may be that people are either confused or concerned or frightened that what does it mean. So first of all, I want to assure you that this is a slow process for us. There is no precedent set. So we are working with the government to make sure that we line up with what they feel the policy would be in order to consider a separation from United Counties and be a single tier government. And to that end, there's some information that we can't share yet because negotiations, but we have agreed that we will have a breakfast with the mayor likely later in September or early October, but within the next few weeks, where you need to answer some of your questions and share the information that we can at that time. So just as council has to bear with the CAO and I, that when we get information, we share it with them. We will offer some information to the public at a breakfast with the mayor. That's all I got to report. And so, all in favor? Carried. Very good. And so that looks like we're done. It's moved by Councillor Carter. First of all, we have to tell the public that we had a terrific tour before the meeting began. We, Councillor Carty is our member on the Heritage Committee and asked us all to go for a tour of the museum. Some have been there for a while. We'd encourage everybody in the public. There's all sorts of new interesting artifacts and things that are important to Westport history there. That's how we started. Now we're ending, moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Crapper. That the meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Village of Westport be adjourned at 6:50 p.m.